Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kayla and it's time to crack into a good book. So today's video is going to be about the September releases that I'm really excited about, and of course, you know, there's like 40-something books on my list that I'm interested in, but I'm only going to talk to you about the 20 that I'm most excited about today. So we again have a mix of genres here, and before we get started, leave a book emoji in the comments to let me know that you're here. So I have actually read and reviewed Arcs of Among Thieves by M.J. Kuhn, Witch Please by Anna Gira, and I've read, haven't quite reviewed yet, but we'll do that soon, Oaths of Legacy by Emily Skrutsky. So like always, we'll move through the month, and some of these already came out September 7th, so we'll begin there. So the first one I'll talk about that has already come out September 7th is Never Saw Me Coming by Vera Kurian. So this is an adult thriller, and basically here it's like all about psychopaths. So we have Chloe, who is a freshman honors student, and you know, just like a casual hot girl next door, but she's also a psychopath. So she spends her time on yoga lattes, frat parties, and plotting to kill Will, who is a childhood friend who grievously wronged her. So she's one of 7 students at her DC-based college who are part of an unusual clinical study of psychopaths, and the study is led by a renowned psychologist, and it requires them to wear smartwatches that track their moods and movements. So one of the students in the study is found murdered in the psychology building, and a dangerous game of cat and mouse begins. Chloe, I guess, goes from hunter to prey. She's trying to identify the killer and put her own plan for revenge into action, and is going to have to decide if she can trust any of her fellow psychopaths. So that sounds really exciting. Really twisted. It talks about, you know, but like if you like watching true crime and wonder about psychopaths among you, like this is going to be a good fit for you, and definitely enjoy those things myself. So I think this sounds really exciting. I've seen really good reviews of it so far, and I just am very curious to read, I think, from the perspective of a psychopath. And like also we have this murder mystery, so definitely want to find out what's going on here. The next book I'll talk about that already came out September 7th is Tides of Mutiny by Rebecca Road. So this is a YA fantasy, and this is piratey. So we have a world where female sailors are executed. So we have 16-year-old Lane, and she dreams of becoming a ship's captain, but this is basically impossible. Sea life is all she knows, and she wouldn't give it up for anything, even if it means she has to hide as a captain's boy to avoid being killed. But her world begins to crumble when an old pirate enemy comes after her father. And she also starts hearing rumors that her father was once a pirate as well. So she doesn't want to believe her father could have a dark past, but she can't help, you know, but question everything she's known. After all, her life at sea is built on lies, so why not her father's as well? We have a mysterious prince who shows up, and she finds her survival tied to a boy who could destroy everything. So we've got pirates, betrayal, and death threatening Lane and those she loves, and so she's going to have to choose between a future she already expected and a prince with an unknown agenda who she finds herself falling for. So she's either going to have to protect herself and find a way to live her dream, or risk everything for a world where her very existence is a death sentence. But maybe, you know, there's a third option. After all, she's never played by the rules before, so why start now? So this sounds really exciting. Also, this cover really drew me in because, like, the colors are beautiful, and it's a very, like, piratey theme, and so I was like, ooh, this sounds fun. And you know, I think the synopsis sounds really exciting as well. Like, I definitely enjoy piratey books. The next book I'll talk about that has already come out September 7th is the Shaadi Set-Up by Lillie Vale. So this is an adult romance. So we have some high school sweethearts who were the golden couple until the day that he broke up with her. So 6 years later, Rita has turned her passion for furniture restoration into a career and has an almost perfect boyfriend. The last thing she needs is for her ex to re-enter her life, but that's exactly what happens when her mother sets them up. So I guess her ex is just as charming, cocky, and confident as he was back in school, but this time he actually needs her business expertise to flip a hard-to-sell house for his realty agency. So she agrees to help, but she's not taking any risks, and so she wants to prove that she's over him and signs herself and her boyfriend up for a Desi matchmaking site that's famous for its success stories and trustworthy enough to convince everyone that she and her boyfriend are the new and improved couple. But she's shocked when her perfect match turns out to be her ex. So, you know, basically it's like ignoring the website and her mother is one thing, but ignoring her ex proves much more difficult, especially when she promises to help him renovate the beach house of her dreams. So, you know, then she starts to wonder, of course, if her match wasn't so wrong after all. So this sounds like a really fun rom-com, but what really drew me in here is one that, okay, the cover has some dogs on it, and I've, like, kind of looking through the reviews, it seems like the dogs have a fun role to play, perhaps, so that sounds exciting. I think this premise sounds really interesting. Also, I love that there's, like, this renovation, like, this house renovation angle. Like, I definitely enjoy watching some HGTV, so that was a big draw for me. I'm really curious to read about it instead of, watching some sort of renovation show. So I think this definitely seems like a romance that I'll enjoy. The next book that's already come out, September 7th, is The Girls Are Never Gone by Sarah Glenn Marsh. So this is a YA horror book. So we have a 17-year-old podcaster, Dare, who doesn't believe in ghosts, but she's the host of Attachments, which is a paranormal investigation podcast. And so she knows to keep her doubts to herself if she wants to win over listeners. Her first season subject is the Arrington Estate, which is a sprawling manor rumored to be haunted by the spirit of Lillie Vale, who drowned in its lake almost 30 years ago. Dare is more interested in investigating the suspicious circumstances of this death, which she thinks point to a decades-old murder, not something supernatural. But this estate is full of surprises, so as Dare is drawn deeper into the mysteries of the estate, she'll have to rethink the boundaries of what is possible, because if something is lurking in the lake, it may not be willing to let her go. So I think that sounds really exciting. It does mention that it's a queer ghost story, which sounds awesome, and there's like a life or death struggle against the evil spirit, so that sounds perfect. I'm definitely here for these spooky, supernatural type vibes, especially, as we get into the fall season. I like that there's this paranormal investigation podcast. The next book I'll talk about that's already come out September 7th is The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrun. So this is another adult romance. This deals with a reality dating show. So we have Dev, who has always believed in fairy tales. So it's no wonder then that he spent his career crafting them in the long-running reality dating show Ever After. He's the most successful producer in the franchise's history, and he always scripts the perfect love story for his contestants, even as his own love life crashes and burns. But then the show cast disgraced tech wonderkind Charlie as its star. So Charlie is far from the romantic Prince Charming that, the show expects. He doesn't believe in true love, and he's only agreed to the show as a last-ditch effort to rehabilitate his image. In front of the cameras, he's a stiff, anxious mess with no idea how to date 20 women on national TV, but behind the scenes, he's cold, awkward, and emotionally closed off. So Dev is fighting to get Charlie to connect with the contestants, but they begin to open up to each other, and Charlie realizes that he actually has better chemistry with Dev than any of his female co-stars. But even reality TV has a script, and in order to find happily ever after, they'll have to reconsider whose love story gets told. So this sounds really fun. It sounds just really charming. I like that there's this reality dating TV show. I think that sounds like it could be really funny. Now we'll move to September 14th, and the first book I'll talk about here is When Sorrows Come by Seanan McGuire. So this is the 15th book in the October Day series, which is an adult urban fantasy series that I've been reading for what feels like forever, but I really enjoy it. And now it's Toby's wedding day. So basically, it's hard to be a hero. There's something that always demands Toby's attention, and her own desires tend to fall by the wayside in favor of solving the kingdom's problems. She's had a lot of delays with the wedding, and it just kind of happens. She doesn't mean to do it, but Her closest friends have finally taken the choice out of her hands and ambushed her with a court wedding at the High Court in Toronto. So basically, so it's once the High King gets involved, there's not much even Toby can do to delay things, except for, getting involved and stopping a plot to overthrow the High Throne itself. Oh boy, so can she save the Westlands and make it to her own wedding in time, or is she going to have to choose one over the other? So that sounds like some high stakes. But this has been such a fun urban fantasy series. I've really enjoyed it, and I think there's a lot of really cool fae elements here. Toby has been an enjoyable protagonist. I think there's a lot of, solving mysteries and trying to do the right thing and be a good knight. So I am really curious to see, does her wedding finally happen? So I'm really invested in this series, and I will definitely be checking this one out. The next book I'll talk about that comes out September 14th is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. So this is an adult romance, and this is basically fake relationships between scientists. So that sounds awesome. So we have a third-year PhD candidate, Olive, who doesn't believe in lasting romantic relationships, but her best friend does, and that's what got her into this situation. Convincing her friend that Olive is dating and well on her way to a happily ever after was always going to take more than hand-wavy Jedi mind tricks. Scientists require proof. So like any self-respecting biologist, Olive panics and kisses the first man she sees, who turns out to be none other than Adam, who's a young hotshot professor and a well-known ass. So this is why Olive is positively floored when Stanford's reigning lab tyrant agrees to keep her charade a secret and be her fake boyfriend. But when a big science conference goes haywire, putting her career on the Bunsen burner, he surprises her again with his unyielding support and even more unyielding six-pack abs. Suddenly their little experiment feels dangerously close to combustion, and Olive discovers that the only thing more complicated than a hypothesis on love is putting her own heart under the microscope. So this sounds like the romance for me, honestly. Like, one, we've got PhD students. I just graduated with my PhD. Granted, you know, it's not biology, but it's biostatistics, so it's a STEM field, obviously. But I like, in the synopsis, we've got these mentions of Jedi mind tricks, like, yes, give me Star Wars references, but also, like, just how this is written is really funny. And alright, so now we'll move to September 21st, and the first book I'll talk about here is She Who Rides the Storm by Caitlin Sangster. So this is a YA fantasy. So long ago, shape-shifting monsters ruled the Commonwealth using blasphemous magic that fed on the souls of their subjects. So now, hundreds of years later, a new tomb has been uncovered, and despite the legends that disturbing a shapeshifter's final resting place will wake them once again, the warlord is determined to dig it up. But it isn't just the warlord who means to brave the traps and pitfalls guarding the crypt. We've got a healer obsessed with tracking down the man who murdered her twin brother, a runaway member of the warlord's devoted order haunted by his sister's ghosts, a snotty archaeologist bent on finding the cure to his magical wasting disease, and a girl desperate to escape the cloistered life she didn't choose. So all four of them are out to seal the same cursed sword rumored to be at the bottom of the tomb, but of course some treasures should never see the light of day, and some secrets are best left buried. So this sounds like super fun. You know, I like that we've got these shape-shifting monsters, and like that could be fun to go up against, you know, if they perhaps bring them back to life. Like, this kind of reminds me of like the setup of The Mummy almost, so hopefully that kind of gives me the same vibes, because that would be great. But I think we have an interesting group of people, and I do enjoy some heist type stories, but it seems like each of our four members here have like some really interesting backgrounds, and I'm super intrigued by that. The next book I'll talk about that comes out September 21st is The Other Merlin by Robyn Schneider. So this is also a YA fantasy, and this is kind of a retelling of Arthurian legend. Welcome to the great kingdom of Camelot. Prince Arthur's a depressed botanist who would rather marry a library than a princess. Lancelot's been demoted to castle guard after a terrible lie, and Emery Merlin has arrived at the castle disguised as her twin brother since girls can't practice magic. Life at court is full of basically scandals, lies, and backstabbing, so what's a casually bisexual teen wizard masquerading as a boy to do, other than fall for the handsome prince, stir up trouble with the foppish Lord Gawain, and defend the prissy Princess Guinevere? When the truth comes out with disastrous consequences, Emery has to decide whether she'll risk everything for the boy she loves or give up her potential to become the greatest wizard Camelot has ever known. So this sounds like a really enjoyable retelling of Arthurian legend. I do enjoy a good retelling, so that's kind of, you know, why I'm really drawn to this. But this seems like pretty humorous. I like that Merlin is a girl. Like, that's a fun take on things. The next book I'll talk about that comes out September 21st is To Break a Covenant by Alison Ames. So this is YA horror slash thriller, I think. So we have Moon Basin that's been haunted for as long as anyone can remember. It started when an explosion in the mine killed 16 people. The disaster made it impossible to live in town, with underground fires spewing ash into the sky. Life in New Basin is just as fraught. The ex-mining town relies on its haunted reputation to bring in tourists, but there's more truth to the rumors than most are willing to admit, and the mine still has a hold on everyone who lives there. Clem and Nina form a perfect loop, best friends forever and perhaps something more. Their circle opens up for a strange girl named Lizzie, with a knack for training crows, and Piper, whose father is fascinated with the mine in a way that's anything but ordinary. So the people of New Basin start experiencing strange phenomena like sleepwalking, night terrors, voices that only they can hear, and no matter how many vans of ghost hunters roll through, nobody can get to the bottom of what's really going on, which is why the girls decide to enter the mine themselves. So this sounds super fun. It sounds like a, you know, good spooky thriller, especially again for the fall season, but also I'm just like super curious as to what is going on here. Like, are there ghosts here? Is this being haunted? But I'm also really excited to learn more about our group of girls. I hope that we'll get a lot of like really great friendships and, you know, perhaps relationships. But the next book I'll talk about that comes out September 21st is The Bronze Beast by Roshani Chokshi. So this is the third book in the Gilded Wolves series, which I've read and really enjoyed. It's kind of like this 19th century world setting, kind of gives me like urban fantasy type vibes. But anyway, so there's been some heists and things. Our characters are trying to find their way through the snarled, haunted waterways of Venice to locate one of the characters. So meanwhile, this character who's kind of missing must balance the deranged whims of the patriarch of the fallen house and discover the location of a temple beneath a plague island where the divine lyre can be played and all that he desires will come to pass. With only 10 days until somebody dies. The crew will face plague pits and deadly masquerades, unearthly songs in the shining steps of a temple whose powers may offer divinity itself, but a price they may not be willing to pay. So I've really enjoyed the series so far. Like, I think the first one is typically pitched as being similar to Six of Crows. I don't think that that's really all that accurate, aside from like the heist elements, and I much prefer the Gilded Wolves, honestly. I think Roshani Chokshi's writing is really beautiful and exciting, and I think there's been a lot of really cool elements in the series so far. I definitely want to continue it, but I like that we've got this Plague Island and possible divinity. Like, that seems really exciting. The next book that comes out September 21st is Gutter Mage by J.S. Kelley. So this is adult fantasy, and I'm actually currently reading it, so I'm excited to talk to you about today. It kind of gives me more urban fantasy vibes, at least so far, which is exciting because I love urban fantasy. So anyway, so we have this kingdom where magic fuels everything from street lamps to horseless carriages, and the mage guilds wield power equal to the king himself. So we've got a lord whose infant son who's kidnapped by this guild. He ends up turning to the one person who's feared by even the most magically adept, Rosalind Featherstone, aka the Gutter Mage. So as Roz delves into the circumstances behind the child's disappearance, she uncovers an old enemy from her traumatic past and a long-brewing plot that could lead to the death of countless innocents, as well as the complete collapse of the society itself. So that's really exciting. I'm about like 40% of the way through, really enjoying it. I started it last night and I'm like already like, oh my god, I need to just like keep reading it because it's so good. So yeah, like I said, it kind of gives me this urban fantasy vibe of like this investigation element, and it's like detective noir vibes, I guess, but the world seems really interesting. I like our main character a lot. There's been some exciting elements introduced here and some mysteries, and like things are not quite adding up, so like there are clearly things that we need to investigate, and I definitely want to find out the answers to that. So basically, like, I'll have a review of this pretty soon once I finish it, obviously, but I'm really enjoying it and wanted to just talk about it today. The next book I'll talk about that comes out September 21st is Beneath the Marigolds by Emily Whitson. So this is an adult thriller. So when her close friend Reese goes missing after attending Last Chance, which is an exclusive singles resort on a remote island off the coast of Hawaii, this no-nonsense lawyer Anne infiltrates the retreat. She quickly realizes that there's more to Last Chance than meets the eye. Extravagant clothes, never-ending interviews, and bizarre dates hint that the retreat is a front for a reality dating show. Could Reese be safe keeping a low profile into the premiere, or did something sinister occur after all? Torn between the need to uncover the truth and her desperate desire to get off the island, Anne partakes in the unusual routines of the journey to true love and investigates the other attendees who have something to hide. In a final attempt to find Reese on the compound, she realizes that she herself may not get off the island alive. So this sounds really exciting. I like that it's on an island off the coast of Hawaii. Like, yes, give me some tropical settings. Like, this place seems definitely like it's a little bit shady and is hiding something. And I like that we've got like a front for a reality dating show. That seems really interesting. But perhaps this is going to be like a closed circle type of vibe, hopefully with some murder mystery, but you know, you're stuck on an island, so that should increase the stakes a lot. So this sounds really exciting, and I definitely want to check it out. The next book I'll talk about that comes out September 21st is Iron Widow by Xiran Jay Zhao. So I've actually already read an arc of this and loved it. So this is YA, I guess it's more sci-fi, but it has some fantastical elements as well, so I really feel like it's a blend of sci-fi and fantasy. But basically, in this world, we have the boys who dream up of pairing with girls to pilot these chrysalises, which are giant mechas that fight the aliens that lurk beyond the Great Wall. So it doesn't matter that the girls often die from mental strain. So our main character offers herself up as a concubine pilot to assassinate the ace male pilot responsible for her sister's death. But she gets her vengeance in a way nobody expected, because she kills him through the psychic link between pilots and emerges from the cockpit unscathed. She's labeled as an Iron Widow, a much feared and much silenced kind of female pirate who can sacrifice boys to power up these mechas instead. So she ends up being paired with the strongest and most controversial male pilot, and he's like a death row inmate. So basically, you know, now that she's got a taste of power, she doesn't want to let it go. It was just so good. Oh my god, I had such a great time with it. You know, it's kind of pitched as Pacific Rim meets The Handmaid's Tale. There's a blend of Chinese history. I think there's some elements from like animes and things like that. Could not stop reading, and like, oh my god, watching our main character like take on everybody. It's like, yes girl, get it, like destroy them all. So there were some really cool moments. I liked these mechas a lot. The world is really exciting, and you know, there's some interesting choices, I think, with our love interests, and I liked the direction it went. Now we'll move to September 28th, and the first book I'll talk about here is The Last Graduate by Naomi Novik. This is the second book in the Sholomance series, and this is an adult fantasy series, and I've already pre-ordered it because I loved A Deadly Education and can't wait to continue this. But essentially we have the setting at a magical school, and our main character is kind of like thought to be like an evil sorceress type character, and it's like, oh my god, the magic school is it's not super friendly. There's a lot of like monsters and stuff that will try to kill everybody. Our beloved school does its best to devour all its students, but now that I've reached my senior year and have actually won myself a handful of allies, it's suddenly developed a very particular craving for me. And even if I somehow make it through the endless waves of like these evil creatures that it keeps throwing at me in between grueling homework assignments, I haven't any idea how my allies and I are going to make it through the graduation hall alive. Unless, of course, I finally accept my foretold destiny of dark sorcery and destruction. That would certainly let me sail straight out of here. The course of wisdom, surely. But I'm not giving in. Not to the malice, not to fate, and especially not to the Sholomance. I'm going to get myself and my friends out of this hideous place for good, even if it's the last thing I do. So, yeah, I can't wait to pick this book up. I loved the first one so much. I think, like, I really liked the setting. It's, like I said, like, very much dark academia vibes, like, so I think this is going to be perfect for the fall, but I also really liked our main character, and, oh my gosh, I just really loved her journey. Super curious to see if they will, in fact, make it out alive, so can't wait for this one. The next book I'll talk about that comes out September 28th is Beasts of Prey by Ayana Gray. So this is a YA fantasy, and basically what really draws me here is there's like a magic zoo. So it's like there's no such thing as magic in the broken city of Lacosta, especially for our main character who holds a power within her that could only be described as magic. A power that if discovered could cost her life. Indentured to the notorious Night Zoo, she knows that the fearsome creatures in her care and paying off her family's debts to secure their eventual freedom can be her only focus. But the night those she loves are gravely threatened by the zoo's cruel master, she finally unleashes the power she doesn't fully understand, upending her life completely. And then we have our other character, who's the second son of a decorated hero, and he's all but destined to become a son of the Six, who's an elite warrior and uphold a family legacy. But on the night of his final rite of passage, he encounters, I guess, the Shaitani, which is a vicious monster that has plagued the city for nearly a century and stalks his nightmares, but also our other main character, who seems to have the power to ward off the beast. So her power ultimately saves his life, but his choice to let her flee dooms his hopes of becoming a warrior. So he's desperate to redeem himself and vows to hunt the Shaitani and end its reign of terror, but he can't do it alone. So essentially they're going to have to team up and together enter the Greater Jungle, which is a world steeped in wild, frightening magic and untold dangers. The hunt begins, but it quickly becomes unclear whether they are the hunters or the hunted. So this sounds really exciting. I particularly was drawn to this because of, one, zoo situation here, like what kind of creatures are there. I'm curious about this Shaitani monster situation. Also, the jungle setting is really exciting. I saw something about like a sentient jungle, so I'm curious about that, but like obviously we have some sort of magic at least and danger in the jungle, so it just seems like a really cool setting. Also, again, the zoo element drew me in a lot, but I think this will be really fun and I can't wait to check it out. The next book I'll talk about that comes out September 28th is Summer Suns by Lee Mandello. So this is an adult horror, gothic horror, I think. So it's like Andrew and Eddie did everything together. Best friends bonded more deeply than brothers until Eddie left Andrew behind to start his graduate program at Vanderbilt. 6 months later, only days before Andrew was to join him in Nashville, Eddie dies of apparent suicide. He leaves Andrew a horrible inheritance, a roommate he doesn't know, friends he never asked for, and a gruesome phantom that hungers for him. As Andrew searches for the truth of Eddie's death, he uncovers the lies and secrets left behind by the person he trusted most, discovering a family history soaked in blood and death. Whirling between the backstabbing academic world where Eddie spent his days and the circle of hot boys, fast cars, and hard drugs that ruled his nights, the walls Andrew has built against the world begin to crumble. And there's something awful lurking, waiting for those walls to fall. So I actually have an arc of this, and we'll be reading it here pretty soon, possibly this week or next week, I don't know. But I'm super excited about it. I like that it's, you know, Southern Gothic horror. Like, that sounds like it's going to work really well for me. I like that we've got this, I guess, sort of dark academia setting. We've got a hungry ghost situation. Like, this sounds like it's going to be awesome, and I really can't wait to read it. The next book I'll talk about that comes out September 28th is Activation Degradation by Marina J. Lostetter. So this is adult sci-fi. So we have Unit 4, who's a biological soft robot built and stored high above the Jovian atmosphere. He's activated for the first time, it's in crisis mode. Aliens are attacking the mine that it's been created to oversee, and now its sole purpose is to defend Earth's largest energy resource from the invaders in ship-to-ship combat. But something's wrong. Unit 4 doesn't feel quite right. There are files in its databanks it can't account for, unusual chemical combinations roaring through its pipes, and the primers it possesses on the aliens are suspiciously sparse. The robot is under orders to seek and destroy, that's all it knows. According to its handler, that's all it needs to know. So it's trying to fulfill its directives and launches its ship and goes on the attack, but it has no idea that it's about to get caught in a downward spiral of misinformation, reprogramming, and interstellar conflict. Most robots are simple tools. Unit 4 is well on its way to becoming something more. So that sounds really exciting. I read The Helm of Midnight earlier this year. Was it this year? I think so. And really loved it. I mean, that's more of like horror fantasy, I guess, but I've been meaning to check out more of this author's work, and this sounds super cool. It mentions exploring sentience and artificial intelligence, and that's something that I always really enjoy doing, so I think that this is going to work really well for me. I certainly know, at least with The Helm of Midnight, that her writing does work well for me, and it's really interesting, so I can't wait to see what all, this sci-fi has in store for us. The next book I'll talk about that comes out September 28th is As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. So this is the third book in a Girl's Guide to Murder series, and I've absolutely loved this series so far. This is a YA thriller, and it involves a lot of true crime podcasts. Pip, our main character, is about to head to college, but she's haunted by the way her last investigation ended. She's used to online death threats in the wake of her viral true crime podcast, but she can't help noticing an anonymous person who keeps asking her, who will look for you when you're the one who disappears? Soon the threats escalate, and Pip realizes that someone is following her in real life. When she starts to find connections between her stalker and a local serial killer caught 6 years ago, she wonders if maybe the wrong man is behind bars. The police are refusing to act, so she has one choice: find the suspect herself or be the next victim. As the deadly game plays out, Pip discovers that everything in her small town is coming full circle, and if she doesn't find the answers, this time she will be the one who disappears. So, that premise already sounds really exciting. I know I love Holly Jackson's writing. I have had such a blast with the first two books. Oh my god, it is phenomenal. So if you're looking for a really, really fantastic YA thriller series, highly suggest picking this up. But it's really fast-paced in general. There's some mixed media elements. I also really like Pip a lot. I can't wait to see what happens in this book. And finally, the last book I'll talk about today comes out September 28th, and that's The X Hex by Erin Sterling, and this is a pen name for Rachel Hawkins, just FYI, but this is an adult paranormal romance. So 9 years ago, Vivian nursed her broken heart like any young witch would. Vodka, weepy music, bubble baths, and a curse on her horrible boyfriend. Sure, she knows she shouldn't use her magic this way, but with only an orchard hayride scented candle on hand, she isn't worried it will cause him anything more than a bad hair day or two. That is until Reese, who's the descendant of the town's ancestors, breaker of hearts and annoyingly just as gorgeous as he always was, returns to Graves Glen, Georgia, which should be a quick trip to recharge the town's ley lines and make an appearance at the annual fall festival, turns disastrously wrong. With one calamity after another striking Reese, she realizes that her silly little X Hex may not have been so harmless after all. So suddenly this town is under attack from murderous wind-up toys, a pissed-off ghost, and a talking cat with some interesting things to say. So our characters have to ignore their off-the-charts chemistry to work together to save the town and find a way to break the breakup curse before it's too late. So this sounds like such a fun time. So I do certainly enjoy urban fantasy, paranormal romance, so this seems really appealing to me. We have this fall festival, so it's going to be perfect to read right now. I'm certainly curious about these murderous toys and this talking cat, but that seems like such a fun book for the fall, and I really can't wait to read it. So those are all the books that I have to talk to you about today. Let me know in the comments if you think you might pick up any of these books, and for your question today, are there other books coming out in September that you are really excited about? So I do have a Discord channel, and if you want to join that, the link's in the description below. I hope you're all having an excellent day and are reading something awesome. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a big thumbs up, so that would certainly help me out. But with that, I think I'm going to wrap it up here and see you in the next one.